Skill-based matchmaking is a topic that's been beaten to death by so many people, myself included. I've got a lot to say, but that might be part of Pandora's box that hopefully won't be open today. But today we are going to be discussing a little bit of insight and information from insider Ralph's Valve, who's opened up a little bit about the plans that he's heard for matchmaking that could come to the title of Modern Warfare 2. Today we're breaking down the good, the bad, and what this means for a potential play experience here to come this fall, and if the other rumors are holding up and end up being true, what will be our experience for the next 2 years to follow, not just one. So as we go along, drop your thoughts down below. Do you like the sound of these adjustments that we'll see to matchmaking perhaps, or I guess the ideas of them, since we can't quite know until they're implemented? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts down below. But if you enjoy the video, do me a favor and drop a like on the video, and if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button to stay updated with all things Call of Duty, whether it be Modern Warfare 2 coverage here, Warzone, or anything COD related. I'd love to have you in the community. And finally, if you'd like to use the support a creator code in the COD store, code Espresso is an entirely optional way to support the channel a little further. Do not ever feel pressure to do so, but if you ever do, tweet me a picture. I'd love to shout out some of your generous support in upcoming videos. That said, let's jump into it. So, skill-based matchmaking, as a baseline, it's something that we've seen in Call of Duty plenty of times before, and has been in just about every Call of Duty, whether you know it or not. I remember perhaps the most viral of moments and hilarious ones to me was the discussion a couple of years back where people vehemently were like, the classic COD games didn't have skill-based matchmaking. If you say anything otherwise, you're dumb. And then the guy who literally wrote the Black Ops 2 implementation for the matchmaking and networking code pulled the dude, it's literally us, the Atlanta Falcons are your source type of moment, where he said, I wrote the implementation. The area of skill-based matchmaking that people will often miss out on is the level or the objective of the matchmaking systems in place, because there are very much so games that had way stricter matchmaking and others that really just prioritize things like connection, and then once the lobby of 12 players are selected, that's when the skill-based matchmaking would actually happen to balance out a team. The first one that you may think is immediately recognizable was Advanced Warfare. That was the first truly miserable one, I think. I kind of consider that the year of reverse boosting for how many people I know that did it. And it wasn't a situation of like, oh, the content creators definitely were. I had friends from high school who had nothing at stake here that just played the game and were like, dude, this isn't fun. Screw it. I'm reverse boosting. That was something that was kind of the first entry into the more modernized definition of skill-based matchmaking, I think. But then a few years passed and things weren't too noticeable. Modern Warfare 2019, however, came back and gave us that system that we have now, which is, at this point, I'd say less skill-based matchmaking rather than retention-based matchmaking. This is a bit more predatory, if you ask me, and if I'm being honest, because the matchmaking system straight up knows your gaming habits and tells and will fluctuate your level of matches to make sure that you stay on the game longer. If you're having bad games and thinking about getting off, well, here's a few games to boost that confidence that you do well in so that you're not thinking about getting off anymore. There's plenty of arguments that can be made in regards to a lot of this, and honestly, we'll go deeper into that in a second, but the last 3 years have seen that, the sort of playing your emotion matchmaking type of deal, where solo is abysmal if you're a higher caliber player in, say, Modern Warfare 2019, Cold War. Honestly, it hasn't been too terrible for me in Vanguard, but it's definitely a matter of if I'm not getting every kill and every capture, my team's going to lose. So it's still absolutely present there, but the past 3 years have been the most noise-generating matchmaking systems because it's all the same system, and it's been, in my mind, again, pretty predatory in that sort of playing the psyche to elongate playtime. So the biggest question is, will this change at all with the next game? With 2 years to potentially bank on, with Activision likely realizing they need to knock it out of the park, can we expect any of these changes? That's where Ralph comes into play, who we've talked about here on the channel before, but as with all leaks, take them all with a grain of salt. Things are subject to change, they may not happen, and even the most accurate reporting at the time may not be indicative of what we see 8 months down the line whenever a game ships. Ralph tweeted, though, despite the plans for revising Modern Warfare 2's SBMM system, disbanding lobbies are supposedly here to stay for all future premium Call of Duty titles, with a few follow-ups then clarifying a little bit about the revision portion of that matchmaking system, stating that yes, it will be less debilitating, and that Demonware has had this particular system in research and development for a few years. They're certainly against the idea of disciplining the better margin of players. Then, in regards to the future following after the Microsoft acquisition as well, he says that's where things become a little hazy. There's likely analytical reasoning for why disbanding lobbies work in favor for Call of Duty rather than against. Consumerism can only go so far. Why work against the success of Modern Warfare and Cold War? Activision aren't willing to run that risk. And then saying that there's a fine line that lays in with this, where it's whether the player considers leaving the match or entirely closing the game. So of course, with all things like this, it sounds a bit hazy, right? I mean, there's not an outright saying, oh, skill-based matchmaking is just outright not there. but it does sound like it's a hint of optimism. The Demonware are working on new systems that are less debilitating for the better margin of players. That is who, I hate to say it, but it is true, that's who the vocal minority are. The vast majority of players don't really ever run into this issue that myself and other content creators and maybe even you end up running into. From all the people that I know personally who have a strong disliking towards or even hatred of the systems in place right now, if I take a look at any of their stats, they're always in the top 1% of players globally, top 5% at the worst end of that sample size, if I can even use worst as an adjective. But when we consider that with the millions of players out there, the ones that notice this are the ones that are in the top 1% or so. So if there's a loosening of that on the upper portion, that's a solid adjustment in my book. From my experiences, the strictest brackets that I'll often see myself in, and that perhaps even you experience, it does actually impair the gameplay itself. And I'm not talking about the, oh, boo-hoo, you just want to pub stomp all the time. And let me get ahead of that. I'd love to always be the best by far in every single lobby, but that's not possible. And I fully recognize that. But I'm talking to the strict degree where I notice visible ping increases, where I notice the same players over and over, and things like that. Playing the same players over and over again, listen, I know with Activision IDs, you can technically face anyone with the same name since there can be repeats, but when you're running into the same guys with visibly distinct names that you're like, this is not something I'll see twice in an hour, or messages in-game of, oh, hey Espresso, good to see you again, you're not playing different people. Normally, this would be something that could make sense if I was playing in South America, South Africa, Australia, and other regions where there's like 1 to 2 primary servers max to connect to. But in the States, there's 12 primary servers just in the United States utilizing Demonware's matchmaking for Call of Duty, including Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Salt Lake City, Dallas, St. Louis, Chicago, Miami, Atlanta, Columbus, Washington, D.C., and New York. Being on the East Coast, I can and I'll often connect to anywhere, depending on who I'm playing with, 8 to 9 of those servers. But when I'm playing solo and seeing the same number of players, you can really see the exemplary lobbies where skill-based matchmaking and that tightening on that matchmaking bracket that it can have the effects of that. Same thing with the ping increases. I definitely should not be seeing my ping increase when I can connect to that many servers hosting different lobbies. So maybe while a loosening at that top level may seem like a positive here with it, and I agree it definitely would be a nice thing to see within the next matchmaking system, oppositely though, if the lobbies do continue to disband outside of those hard locked in the same air quote elo as you, it still can be a downer and still a sort of half loss for those that have the classic Call of Duty experience in mind. Making friends in lobbies, rivaling players in a lobby, that's something that if you love that in the past, it seems like it might not be a reality for much anytime soon, if ever again. Now, as somebody that usually has voice chat muted and is just kind of vibing out when I play multiplayer, those factors don't really affect me, but I totally recognize those that have actually ended up making great friends out of gameplay from Call of Duty lobbies in the past, that have had some great competition, and from lobby to lobby, if nobody leaves, they can have some solid sparring back and forth. I totally get the irritation if that's your cup of tea, and it won't necessarily be reality anymore. But I mean, here's the thing. It's a very tricky scenario for sure, and my dumbass with a YouTube channel talking into a mic certainly doesn't know anything better than anyone else. Some sort of matchmaking is always going to be present and necessary, especially when considering that in order to retain a player base which reached its all-time peak here a few years back with Modern Warfare 2019 and with Warzone, you have to make sure that those players aren't getting stomped off the face of the earth where there's limited to no enjoyment. As Ralph said, it's a very delicate balance of matchmaking where an aggrieved player could back out and search for a new lobby or just close the application altogether. Obviously, only one of those is healthy for a long-term lifespan of a game, and that's where it really comes down to. So right now, maybe take this with a bit of optimism here that this may be something better for your gameplay experiences match to match, but if you're somebody that likes to have that potential rivalry between lobbies, that you want to play the same people over and over again, but maybe necessarily aren't limited to being strictly in a sort of elo where you could back out and do it whenever you wanted, it might be a half win. But anyways, wanted to fill you guys in here on this and let you know what's been going on with the new rumors and information coming out of Modern Warfare 2's development here, perhaps. But of course, as with all this kind of stuff, it is not confirmed. Take it with a grain of salt, but let me know your thoughts down below. Do you guys enjoy the thought of this? Do you like the sound of maybe not having that 1 to 5% of players strictly playing that top 1 to 5% of players? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts down below. But if you enjoyed the video, do me a favor, drop a like on the video. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare 2, Warzone, anything COD related, we got you covered here on the channel. So if you're interested, I'd love to have you in the community. That said, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care. and peace.